How we doing today, folks? I figure in today's video I'm gonna kill two birds with one stone, and I'm gonna show you what's going on with my chipper and also take video, so if I don't remember how things go back together, I'll have a video. I was out on the homestead this morning and I was cutting up some like 30-inch diameter sugar maple. I had a bunch of bark from the area near the ground and I was throwing that through the chipper here. I knew the stuff was a little bit big, but I really shouldn't have been, doing that. And after chipping for maybe 15 minutes or so, the chipper started to make some really weird noises, and then it was clearly out of balance. At one point, the noise got really loud, and I disconnected the belt, and I turned the motor off, and I didn't run away, but I walked away quickly, just in case something fell apart, because it was making that much of a grinding noise. So when I got back to the garage, I washed the chipper off, and it amazes me how dirty these things get. But I washed the chipper off, and I took off some shrouds, and the first thing I found was right over here. This piece seemed like it was a little bit, was vibrating a little bit. So I went ahead and tightened. There's a bolt over here I tightened, and then there's a bolt over here as well. And it turns out that was not the issue. I was looking around for some major damage, and I was really hoping there wasn't any major damage, but I kept looking around the chipper for major damage. I washed that out. Look at how clean that is, because it gets so cleaned off when you're chipping, So I took the hose and washed that off so I could see. I don't see any hairline cracks in there. Everything seemed okay there. On this chipper, there's a guard that goes right over here, and I wanted to take this guard off and take a look at the bearing, and when I went to take off one of the bolts, it just kept spinning on me. So that kind of clued me in that there was something going on. So I took off the other bolts and tried to pull back, and when I pulled back, the top bolt here basically fell out, and this little spacer shim here rolled away. It took me a few minutes to find it. It just hit the floor and kept rolling. So what happened was the bolt over here snapped, and there's a lot of wiggle on that shaft now. What I got to do is basically put a new bolt in, but if you probably can't see, there's no room to work in there to put that new bolt in. I was hoping I took one of the blades off. If you guys can see, I took one of the blades off, hoping I could have access to sneak a bolt in, but I can't. This locking collar was up on top here, and it's some kind of a centrifugal one where you whack it this way and it locks, and you whack it this way and it comes off, and then there's a set screw too. I don't really understand how this thing works. It seems like it keeps coming loose, but I took this guy off, and when I go get the parts today, I'm going to ask him if I need a new one of these, because that looks kind of torn up. But what I need to do is basically figure out a way to replace this bolt, and I got the keyway up. It just seemed like a good place to be. But what I'm going to do is I put a piece of wood, put a piece of scrap wood under there, and a piece of roofing shingle to hold the weight of the rotor. Take off these two nuts, pull this stuff off, pull this bearing off, and then once I get that off, I'll undo all these bolts around the outside here. But I'm going to leave on this one and this one for last. I'll leave them loosely, because that'll hold all the weight. This whole piece wants to come off. So once we get all the weight and all the bolts off, take off these two, pull this out, and then I think what's going to happen is I have to install this bearing first. So when I put this back on, I'm going to just have to be very careful and thread this on, tighten all these bolts down. This will actually be tight when I put it on, and then I can use the set screw to finish the installation. So it seems fairly straightforward. There's always going to be little curves, curve balls, but that's where we are. And I want to take this off because I want to, if I'm taking these bolts off, I'll just go ahead and get new bolts. You know, I don't know how old they are or how, you know, how damaged they are from the stress of running with just 2 bolts, not 3. And I'll take this bearing with me too and have them check it out. There's no sense on doing this a second time a week later because I, you know, didn't get a new part. Okay, guys, well, we got everything off, and, you know, there was a little bit of a hitch, as there always is, but it wasn't too bad. And let me just show you. Here's our bearing. And it looks okay, it moves okay. But, you know, I'll probably ask him how much a new one is. And if it's not ridiculous for a new one, I'll just pop a new one on. The one thing that happened is I did have to use a gear puller to get this guy off. So I bent it a little bit. But I'm pretty sure once we tighten that up, you can see right over here, I'm pretty sure once we tighten that up, it'll be perfectly fine. It'll snug down. Again, maybe I'll just ask the guys at the power equipment shop what they think, because I don't do this stuff all the time. I just love to tinker. But there's our piece, and the piece that holds the chipper chute was not as heavy as I anticipated, but it was still nice to, you know, I left these 2 bolts to hold it on, so it was nice. It wasn't so bad to get off. I did have to use a gear puller, and I only put 2 jaws on to pull that bearing off. You know, I tried prying with screwdrivers, and it was kind of stuck on the shaft. I put some oil on the shaft. Actually, first I took some of this. This is what plumbers use to clean joints before they solder them. So I took some of this stuff and cleaned all of it off. I put some oil on and tried to slide it back, but it wasn't coming. But once I took my gear puller, and again, I just had 2 jaws on, put that on and pulled it back, it came pretty easy without a fight. The shaft is definitely, you know, you can feel where that bearing was. I'm assuming, you know, I tried to use the locking feature of that bearing one other time, and I think maybe the shaft is so worn that it only sits in the shaft one way. So that was probably what I was dealing with. But that is where we are. So I'm going to go to the power equipment dealer, order some parts, and we will have a part 2 where we put everything back together as soon as we get the parts. Take it easy, guys.